Hi everyone, thanks for joining us for this QuestCast on demystifying the rankings process. We're happy to have four Quest scholars here to talk about their experience ranking colleges through QuestBridge and how that worked out for them, whether they were matched or not matched, and admitted later through regular decision. Today we're going to be talking solely about the rankings process and that experience, so any other questions related to how we select finalists and test scores, things of that nature, we're not going to be able to answer today, unfortunately. If you have questions about that, you can look on our website for more details. You can also email us questions@questbridge.org. But on to rankings. So my name is Erin Turner. I am a program associate here at QuestBridge. I'm actually a Quest scholar as well. I went to Northwestern, and I was admitted to Northwestern through regular decision. But I'm not going to be talking about my rankings experience. I'm going to let our panelists talk about their rankings experience. And with that, Kyla, do you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. Hi, I'm Kyla. I'm currently acting in support for the student relations team here at QuestBridge. This past June, I just graduated from Stanford as a Quest scholar. I didn't get matched. I just applied through QuestBridge regular decision.
Okay. Zora?
Hi, I'm Zora. I'm a sophomore at Rice University, and also the Quest liaison here. And so I ranked 3 schools, but ended up getting into Rice through regular decision later. So.
Okay. Raphael?
Hi, so I'm Raphael. I'm at Tufts University. I applied to 8 schools, and I was matched with my number 3, which was Tufts. So that's kind of my process through that.
Great. Drew?
Hi, I'm Drew. I'm a junior and also the Quest liaison at Trinity College. I was admitted to Trinity through the college match. I ranked a total of 4 schools, and Trinity was my 3rd.
Okay. Great. Lots of different experiences with the rankings process, which is why I'm excited to have you all here today. So jumping back even before you started ranking colleges, there's that period of time where you're researching colleges. And hopefully, you know, you've started a long time ago, maybe even the summer before your senior year. But for students right now who might be just starting that process or might still be going through it, do you have any advice for them for researching schools and deciding which ones they would want to rank?
Okay, so the way I did it was I wasn't able to visit any of the schools that I ranked. So what I did was I went onto the websites, and a lot of the schools offer like a virtual tour or something like that. So I did that just to explore the campus. I also like Googled where the campus was located and looked at the area around it. I also reached out to the admissions officer for my region and talked to him about the school, the atmosphere, and having a little glimpse of what Tufts was, or like all the other schools I also applied to. And I also reached out to current students at those schools, and that really did help a lot.
For me, it was a similar process. It was like I would go online and just research everything online. I went to a lot of forums online where current students talk about their experiences and how they felt about that, and through there I was able to see what kind of community the school had, what kinds of extracurricular activities they had. So in addition to just really researching all the websites of the schools, also looking at college forums and reading about what current students felt about the schools that they were going to.
I would definitely have to agree with that. Things that I looked to as particular resources were collegeconfidential.org. They give a ton of information, not only just on the basic descriptions of schools, like whether or not they are like a viable choice for like someone with like certain scores, even though that's pretty flexible with a program like QuestBridge. They'll also be able to tell you based on students' behalf, people that had to apply to these schools and either are there now or graduated from there, how they thought about it, whether or not you'd be a good fit for it, and you can talk with them one-on-one. And clearly, these people are in the league of helping people in similar situations to you because that's why they're on the forums. In addition, I'm sure a lot of you, pretty much all of you, in fact, are judging your schools very highly based on their academics. So I like to go on Rate My Professor to see the different results that you'll get. However, of course, your mileage may vary. I mean, naturally, you're not gonna get perfect results that are like exactly accurate to each school. But if you see trends, that's probably a good indicator of a good department that you might want to pursue at that given school. I mean, some schools will be stronger than others in your given interest. So always check that out too, I think.
Yeah. Another good resource is I think niche.com or something like that. I would definitely go towards websites that are more like willing to like criticize these schools and not just evaluate like the academics or the things that we know are good about them. So I think niche was really good. It's like gives like letter grades for certain things like their dorms a letter grade and like comments. So looking for those kinds of websites. I didn't research a lot based off of those other factors, which I think would have been more important, would have allowed me to like rank schools more and really know that I wanted to go there.
So something that we talk about here a lot about at QuestBridge is about finding the college that's the right fit for you. We think that finding, the college fit is very important. When you guys were researching schools, how did you kind of find out, what schools would be a good fit for your personality and the different things that were important to you?
I guess I'll start. That, for me, basically just came down to a number of factors that were most important for me, and how I knew that I would try and experience things here. So at Trinity, things that I looked for were, one, academics, of course. I study public policy and philosophy, so I wanted a school that would have a major focusing on each of those things. And for public policy, that's hard. So I needed to make sure that I found that. After that, I wanted to look for different resources on campus to do certain things, whether that was research and an interest or some organization that had values that I could connect with, things of that nature. And I found some here, so of course that was a plus. Otherwise, you'll have to learn a little bit more about the culture. Some schools have a more definitive culture that you'll learn about online. Trinity being one of them, perhaps Oberlin, Swarthmore being others on the opposite end of the spectrum. So you could look at things like that. Otherwise, I'd just say talk with people. Other than those things, which are going to be like pretty particular, it's more subjective than that, and you'll probably need to talk it through with someone to get the best results.
I also think like location is super important. And so I was lucky enough to go to school near my home, so I'm able to like visit when I want to. And so, it's so important because you're going to be there for the next 4 years, and that's where you're going to pass your time. So definitely looking into like what's around in the area, whether or not you want to be in a city or you're okay with being away from the city in the suburbs, and how you'll be able to like succeed academically and stuff. So.
I have to agree with that point. For me, I did not know what exactly I wanted to major in yet, and I know a lot of people know what they want to major in, and they're able to like look at colleges that are really strong at that. But a lot of other people also don't know what they want to major in, and I think for me, what was really important was having a school where I could explore a little bit more before deciding what my major was. And Stanford definitely offers that, and I was really happy about that. And I would have to agree with the location. I think it's really important in creating a community and what kind of community you want to be a part of. If it's more of an urban location, more of a city, there might not be as much of like a campus community, whereas if it's more residential, there might be a little bit more of that. And so really looking for that, and also really looking for maybe what you need to relax in times of stress, and what kinds of opportunities the school might have for you in that regard. So I think kind of just looking at for me, it was just looking at the resources that a school had other than the academic part, since I still wasn't very sure about what I wanted my major to be.
Okay, so the way that I found my the best fit was basically just seeing which campus I would feel comfortable in, and that meant like in terms of like the weather, the atmosphere, and just like the people on campus, and just the resources that campus would provide for you. Those were all very important for me, and so I just exploring some of those things meant a lot, and whichever campus I felt the most comfortable in, with those things that I mentioned earlier, was the one that I felt like would be the best fit for me.
Okay, great. So when you guys ranked the schools, were you excited about attending all of them? Had you even visited all of them before? Like, how did you kind of narrow it down to the schools that you actually wanted to put down on that list?
Well, I like this one. So I ranked 4 schools. I pretty thoroughly researched them to the best of my ability, but I think one of the most interesting things about my application experience is I didn't visit a single school before I applied anywhere. I didn't have the resources then, both financially speaking and time-wise, considering I had a lot of obligations at home. So with that in mind, I had to just make do with the information that I had. But I think depending on your sense of priority and how well you can pursue talking with people to get a good understanding of how the culture is there, or any other specifics that you might be interested in, then you can still make a pretty solid judgment. I am happy with my decision, definitely. So.
I chose to rank only 2 schools, and they were Stanford and Yale, so they were both non-binding, and I think that played a big role in my decision. I chose to rank Yale. I mean, I really like Stanford. I visited it before, and then I chose to rank Yale because they had a good humanities program. And I know I just talked about not knowing what you wanted to major in, but I knew that I wanted to do humanities at least. So I chose those 2 because they were non-binding and they seemed to be great schools, though I was really interested in a lot of other schools that were binding. I was just very cautious about what I would rank and if I got matched and if I would be happy there, especially because I also couldn't visit a lot of those schools and didn't have the opportunity to do that. So that's how I chose what I wanted to rank.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's really interesting because I think a lot of students do choose to rank just the non-binding schools. If you're watching and you aren't familiar with the non-binding schools, that is Stanford, Princeton, Yale, and MIT. So if you're matched to one of those schools, you're not obligated to attend the next year. But I think what's interesting about it is that a lot of students do choose to rank those schools because they are all such excellent schools. And if you are concerned about committing to a school, that's a really great way around it. But I think another thing to consider is that those are all very competitive schools. And if there are that many more students ranking those schools, there are many more students applying as well. So I think it's a really interesting issue, kind of phenomenon that we see that so many students rank those schools just because they're non-binding. And I think it's something where if you'd want to attend those schools, you should definitely rank them. But I think it's also worth it to research other schools as well. If you were okay with ranking some of the binding schools.
Okay. So I ranked 8 schools, and throughout my process, I started learning more and more about the schools. And so then that's when I started to realize that I really didn't want to go to like all 8 of them. I didn't really feel passionate about all of them. So through the process, I learned that I liked some more than others. So I think that like you just kind of like I think Drew mentioned, you just have to like figure out which ones feel right and which ones you like or not, and then like just go for the ones that like you like the best. Because personally, throughout like the application process, I kind of lost interest in some of them, and so my effort went into the schools that I really did like, and I think that could have been avoided if I just picked the ones that I truly felt passion for.
Mm-hmm. So Raphael, you ranked all 8 schools, which
yeah.
When you applied was the maximum number you could rank, and I find that really interesting because I think not that many people rank all 8 schools, but we have noticed in the past couple of years, 45% of the students who matched ranked all 8 schools or maximized their rankings, and that was because they took advantage of all those opportunities for admission. But this year, as you guys know, there's the possibility to rank 12 schools, which is brand new for QuestBridge, and it's really exciting because over the years we've been increasing how many colleges that we're partnered with. So we're trying to allow you to apply to more of them, as we're increasing the number of schools that we partner with. That being said, I think there's something to be said for, only ranking schools that you're comfortable attending. And this actually leads us to a question that's been submitted, and that question is, do you recommend that we rank up to 12 colleges? And should I add schools I'm not sure about just to rank up to 12 schools to better my chances, or rank less schools that I'm certainly sure I would attend if I got accepted? So for someone who's concerned about, they want to maximize their chances, but they're kind of not sure about all the schools, what would you say to someone who's in that situation?
So there's definitely, there's definitely like a fine balance to like maintain in whether or not you should rank those schools that just give you opportunities versus like the schools that you're gonna have a good fit in. And so like I ended up I think I ranked 3 schools that were non-binding, and just because I was super cautious. And because I was so cautious, like I feel like I wasn't able to get the most out of like the match process, and I ended up going to school and I'm like really happy about how it ended up. But being able to research more and like get to know those schools better and realize like how much I would have been okay with going to Rice, and like actually not just okay, but would have loved going to Rice because of how much I'm able to be near my family and because of the opportunities here, then I would have been able to rank it more. So it's definitely like that balance of like researching and really getting to know those schools before. Yeah. I think Drew wants to say something.
Yeah, sorry. So, I don't want to.
Oh, sorry. Yeah.
Hi.
Hi.
So, I think it's something that you kind of just have to decide for yourself. I mean, of course, there's a lot of value in having more schools rather than fewer in terms of the economic impact. You're more likely to get, more money from QuestBridge in that sense. But you have to make sure that what you're getting is actually valuable to you too. I mean, like let's say you're applying to like some myriad of schools that are like way different. Like let's say you want a liberal arts school, and you get through all of them, but then you got some extras, so you apply to like these huge universities too. If you're not going to be happy there, you just have to dwindle it down. So I would just use your best judgment in that respect.
Yeah. And I would agree with that, because like not only will you might end up in a place that you might not feel passionate for, but it also will take time from it will also take time away from the work that you can be putting onto the other applications that you really do feel passionate about. So it's definitely like I don't know, it can hold you back in some way, in my opinion.
And that's plenty of work to do. So.
Yeah, it's definitely a fine balance. Like, not over-ranking, but still ranking some schools that you want to go to. So.
Yeah, I think it's with the possibility of ranking 12 schools, it's a completely different game this year. But I think it's best to think of that as an opportunity, and one that you should think about carefully. But also, at the end of the day, rank schools that you absolutely want to go to. Because if you're matched, you are, obligated to attend that school unless it's a non-binding school. And that's very important. That's very serious. So, you do have a greater opportunity this year, but think about it very wisely. Okay. So once you've ranked schools, I know I don't see any questions about this right now, but I know that once you rank schools, you can have these supplemental materials that you have to turn in. You have to turn those in by November 1st. Do you guys have any advice, maybe things that you learned from your experience turning in those materials, or things you would have done differently? Any advice for students who might be thinking about ranking just a few schools or a lot of schools so that they can get those materials done on time?
Okay, so one thing that I learned during the application process was learning how to recycle my essays. So basically, there's a lot of times the supplemental essays for a lot of them they're phrased the same way kind of, so you can reuse your essays but just like change a little things here and there, and that way it would just save you a lot of time, and it would also save you just like having to like come up with new ideas. It become difficult when it's like you have a limited amount of time.
Yeah. I think there's also, it's great to recycle the supplemental essays, but if you can include any concrete examples, concrete details in there, that's like really cool to tie it into the school. The place I would really suggest recycling essays is on the Common Application. You can definitely reuse your biographical essay for that main essay prompt. Our schools encourage that. That will save you a ton of time, although you might have to cut down on the word limit.
And also just make sure you're saving it in like somewhere away from your application, like on a Word doc or a Google Doc even, just so it's safe.
That is so important. I lost so much. It is just please do not do that for your own sake. And for our ease of mind too, like just don't. I don't want to think about that stress. It is.
Yeah.
I would definitely agree. As far as I understand, the QuestBridge prompts are even tailored so as to be similar to the Common App prompts, so that transition's even easier. Recycling is really important, even with essays. So just have at it. And if you see that you've got some ideas that you weren't able to quite flesh out, or even include in one of those essays that you still think is like really important, set it aside. Maybe put some more thoughts to it, and then if there's some supplement later on that it seems relevant to, you can flesh it out even more. And you've already got that plan sort of blueprinted.
Yeah. So I love writing, I'm one of those writers that hates deleting stuff that I've written and I've put my time towards. So after I do write, the stuff that I end up just not including because I realize it's irrelevant, I just stockpile at the end of the essay or whatever. And then so when it came to writing those essays, I remember taking that stuff and putting it on another document, And so it's when you're choosing stuff to write about for other prompts, you can see what you've already written in the past that you want to expand on or that you weren't able to use that you still really want to use. So
I was also just going to add that even though you don't find out that if you're selected as a finalist until October 21st, it's not a bad idea to maybe start thinking about these supplemental materials now and maybe start preparing for them, especially because even if you're not selected as a finalist, those materials will still be very useful, applying to colleges in general, since as we were saying, a lot of them are very similar. So.
Yeah, actually, Kyla, that's a great point, and it leads me to the next question I was going to answer here, and that is, why are we supposed to turn in grades before we find out our finalist status? So the reason why those two seem to be in the wrong order is not because it impacts our finalist selection. Your rankings do not impact finalist selection. It's because we know that the turnaround time between finalist notification on October 21st and when you have to submit the supplemental materials on November 1st, that's a very short time period. So we want to give you a little bit of extra time between October 13th and November 1st to prepare to submit all those materials. So that's why it's in that order. So you have more time, whether or not you become a finalist, you can start preparing in advance in order to have enough time to submit all those materials. Fun facts about QuestBridge. So I see. So kind of jumping toward, match notification day, December 1st, I believe, for most of you. What was that like when, I'm going to jump to Drew and Raphael first. When you found out you were matched, what was your reaction like? How has that been for you?
Okay, so for me, it's a very interesting reaction because I really didn't know how to react. I just opened my email. I was in the kitchen with my brother. I just stared at my phone because I had opened it on my phone. I was just looking at it. My brother goes, "What was it? What was that?" He grabs my phone and starts yelling. He's like, "Congrats!" I'm just there in shock. So I just didn't know how to react. It was just really overwhelming for me. But it was the best feeling ever to know that I have a place to go next year.
I'll go next, I guess. So I told this story earlier. I was in a car, more specifically a van, going to Virginia from Pennsylvania to an international debate tournament. And I was really, really tired from having done work all day. I knew that the match results were going to come in that day, but I didn't expect to get in at all. It wasn't even on my mind at this point. I figured at the morning of, I just checked before I went to sleep, say, oh, I'm sorry to say, ... and then just nod off until the next morning. But, I'm just riding along. I don't have 3G or Wi-Fi or anything. My phone wasn't that fancy. and I get a text from my mom. She's flipping out, but it's like so unintelligible, I should say, that I couldn't make out what she was getting at. And eventually I get out of her that I matched. Almost sneezed, but and at that point, I start, cheering. Everyone in the car had known about it because I was good friends with them all. So they were, asking me what it was about. I explained it. They all cheered. There was like 15 people in like a very small area, so it was quite overwhelming. And then I got treated to dinner that night by my coach, so it was just a great weekend.
Very nice. Okay, both excellent stories. So for you guys in particular, we have a question here that a lot of people are really curious about, and that is, what assets are not covered by the scholarship? And I'm going to assume that is asking like what college costs are not covered by the scholarship. And just to preface your answers, I want to add that the College Match Scholarship is a little different for each college, but the hallmarks of a College Match Scholarship is that there's no parental contribution and no student loans. Otherwise, it is intended to cover tuition, books, cost of travel, and other expenses. But now, Drew and Raphael, I'm going to jump to you guys. Can you kind of tell me a little bit more about what the College Match Scholarship package has been like for you guys?
Sure. So, in my case at Trinity College, what the scholarship will ordinarily cover is pretty traditional stuff, in addition to like a few small tidbits. So, of course, that's tuition, room and board, and all of those things will transfer if you go abroad, by the way, which makes it very easy. I get like a couple other opportunities for like small courses if I wanted to take them on the side, even if they're not official to the college, or like music lessons if I wanted to do that. I get a $500 check, which is really weird to me, and I still think it's strange after having been to the college for 3 years. Instead of like some credit for books, you can buy them basically any way that you want. You can either get it at the bookstore, which regardless of where you go is always going to be extremely expensive. So I suggest going to Amazon and getting your money's worth. So that may be the case with you. And that's about it. What's not covered traditionally is travel. What QuestBridge's website ordinarily says, I don't know if this to be true now, just because I haven't checked recently, but before what it had mentioned is that you should be making more or less $1,000 each summer, so that you could pay for that travel back and forth. And considering that people are going to be further away than others or closer than others, depending on where you go to school relative to where you live, just make sure that you have enough for that. Unless your school covers it, but I haven't heard of that thus far. So.
Okay.
So for the scholarship at Tufts, it's basically the same thing with Drew and Trinity. Same thing. The only thing that is different is the fact that Tufts does not cover books or travel. So those are like the only small differences between the two colleges.
Okay, great. And I do want to point out that you can actually see what the scholarship package looks like for each school on our website. That's all publicly available information. If you just go to the page of that school on our website and click on the financial aid tab, it very explicitly draws out all the details of the scholarship match, the match scholarship at those schools. And I think Drew brought up an important point about that summer work, because some schools might expect you to work over the summer and to save up some money to pay for things such as some of your personal expenses, your travel, things like that. So the schools count that as those expenses as paid for in your scholarship package, but how they expect you to pay for it is by working over the summer. So it's an interesting detail, very something you might not expect, but something that you can find all the details about on our website, because that's all publicly available information. Okay, so now Zora and Kyla, it's your turn to talk about not being matched, what that was like, and then how that worked out with regular decision, and kind of how that process worked out for you.
Sure. So I actually, my sisters had also gone through QuestBridge, and neither of them got matched, and they both moved on to regular decision. So when it was my turn, my mom was like, "Well, don't expect to get matched," and so I didn't. But I still did, obviously, the non-binding colleges, and didn't get matched. So I was like, okay, and I think that mindset really helped me kind of move on to regular decision. I was like, okay, now I have to do regular decision because this is where I can, get accepted or not. And obviously, regular decision, the due date is much later. And I was able to do that, and I got into Stanford, and Stanford gives a very generous financial aid package. I don't know if I should talk about that now.
Yeah, go for it.
Okay, so I just want to say that a lot of these schools really, they seem really, really expensive, but a lot of them have a lot of money, so definitely don't be afraid to apply to them because they can provide you with a lot of financial aid. And I received a really good financial aid package. I think the only thing I had to pay for was I had to pay about like $200 a quarter, and I was able to do that through work study. So I had a job, and I was able to do that myself. My parents didn't have to pay for anything. With Stanford, though, they change their financial aid every year depending on your situation. So I started from paying $200 a quarter to, by senior year, is paying a lot more than that, but that just depends on how much your financial situation changes. Yeah, but still, it was still a very, very, very generous financial aid package.
Yeah, so I also didn't get matched, and I think I was kind of relieved because I ended up matching in schools that weren't binding anyways. So I was like, okay, so here comes my regular decision schools, and I really wanted to decide between those schools anyways. So I was fine with it, and then I ended up getting to Rice, and so Rice is fine. They're really, really generous as well. They cover your tuition under, I think Stanford, all these top colleges cover your tuition, a lot of them, if you're under a certain income bracket. And so after that, it was just kind of housing is kind of iffy. So last year, it ended up covering half of it or close to half of it, just because on-campus housing is really expensive, I think. And so my dad had to pay a little, a couple, $1,000 or $2,000. And so this year, I'm off campus, and I'm paying nothing because off-campus housing, I'm 5 minutes away, and it's so much cheaper. And so I didn't have to pay out of pocket. So it definitely is still so generous, like you were saying, tuition completely covered. Most of your housing will be covered. But yeah, the one thing is I am really happy that I'm at Rice, and this was my dream school when I was little, and so the only thing was that maybe I should have matched it in just because there's those little tiny perks, but that was it's not a big deal. It ends up being just fine. So.
Okay. So you actually brought up a really interesting point about living off campus, which I think is really interesting, and it'll vary per school, and each school has a different policy, but generally financial aid and the match package will cover your, it's your room and board, so they'll cover that whether you're living on campus or off campus, which is really cool and something that, applicants might not know about. So that's a really, really good thing if you're worried about that and you would like to live off campus. Drew and Raphael and, you guys who didn't match, neither of you, Drew and Raphael, you guys didn't end up at your #1 school. So, but you did wind up within the top 4. Drew, you only ranked 4, but you're in the top 4. How was that experience like? You didn't rank within #1 or 2. What was your reaction to that, and how do you feel now that you're at that college?
It's honestly, it's such a mix of emotions in the immediate sense, when you realize that you've matched, but then it wasn't the #1. Because most of us are naturally very idealistic. We imagine that if we're going to get matched at all, then the immediate process is that, even if you matched all 12, forget the other 11, this is the one. And I guess when I first heard about it, I was first I was yeah, and then think, oh, and I'm well, wait, this is still great. And I'm well, but, and it's this weird dissonance for maybe 2 weeks. And so long as you were comfortable with how you matched to begin with, you'll be happy and just keep marching along and say, okay, I'm really happy about what I'm going to see this fall. But it is a very weird feeling to start with.
Yeah.
Okay, so for me, it was like Drew said, a lot of mixed feelings. I was like, oh, okay, well, I didn't get into those other two, but okay. But it just takes a while, just like getting to adjust and realizing that regardless of what school it is, it's an amazing scholarship, an amazing school, great resources. So you're still a winner. But yeah, so like for me, like I arrived on campus, loved the environment, loved the people, so I think that it was a perfect match for me.
Yeah, I think you'll definitely see how much you love the school once you get there, because like every day at Rice, I'm just like realizing how great this opportunity is, and like how great the school is, and how great of a fit it is. So it's like you might be like, oh, I didn't get into those schools initially, but once you're like actually there, you realize like this is the place for me. So.
Yeah. Yeah, I think something that's interesting that I always think about when I think back to my own college application process is that I was so set on just a few schools that I thought, these are the only schools that I will ever be happy at. And in reality, there are a lot more schools that I would have been really happy at. And I think it's, like, even if you don't get matched to your number one school, like, you rank those other schools for a reason if you've done your research right, and it will work out. Yeah. And Kyla, you ranked Stanford, and you weren't matched with Stanford, but you were accepted.
Yeah, I was accepted regular decision. And also, yeah, I was going to say something else, but I didn't want to share that. But yes.
Yeah.
So it's possible. I think I get a lot of questions like, oh, is it possible to, get accepted to school even if you weren't matched? Like, yes, absolutely. And I mean, obviously, I had to pay a little bit indefinitely. It's like sometimes that's the reason they don't match with you. Maybe they want a different financial aid package for you. So keep your hopes high.
Yes, Kyla is living proof that you can still attend a school even if you aren't matched with it. So I think that's another really cool thing about ranking schools is that, if you aren't matched, you can apply to them again, and they might be able to accept you through a regular decision. There are a whole bunch of different factors that are at play when schools are looking at you, which actually leads us to the most upvoted question thus far. That is, are some schools more open to accepting QuestBridge applicants than others? And the answer is, it's really complicated. It varies for each school. They each have different policies. They each have different ways they review applications. Unfortunately, I'm not able to give a clear answer because it's so different for each school. But I think the most important thing is that if you aren't matched with a school, they definitely might really want you to apply for a regular decision. Some of them offer you the opportunity to join an early decision even.
Yeah. I noticed, I guess, two things that were probably relevant to this question. The first thing would be that while there is no clear measure of how schools accept applicants that are from QuestBridge, you can sort of get trends of sorts if you look at the acceptance rates of the previous years and then compare them to the average acceptance rate. Of course, there's going to be a little bit of I guess bias, considering that if it's a small school in particular, then you're going to see a lot of QuestBridge applicants proportional to the total count. Like, we have a lot each year here at Trinity, maybe we'll say 10 or so a year, and we take in about 550 students. So that's almost 2.5% of the population, which is at least statistically significant. So your mileage may vary there, but I think you can get a sort of clear indicator with it. The other thing is that when applying, if you are at all worried about this, there are, again, not only schools that, well, every school will take you through regular decision if you're applying that way. They're not going to restrict you in that way. But also, you'll find that a ton of schools have two different waves of early decision. And almost always, the second early decision registration is going to allow you to submit an application that way after the match. I was planning to do that with Williams if I didn't get matched, but I did. And early action is another choice then, too. It usually starts a little bit later, but of course it's still before early decision. And that's non-binding, so you can look into that, too.
Yeah, that's actually, I want to touch on that a little bit more because I think some people have been confused about how that can work. So we actually have information on this on our website for each of the schools. So if you rank schools and you aren't matched, you can, some of the schools will allow you to kind of roll your application over to their early decision pool. They already have all the materials from you, so it's really easy for them to do that. If a school offers that option, it will say that on the college requirements page on our website. So you can find out there, you know, you can have yet another opportunity for admission if you aren't matched through that early decision kind of rolling over process. And that's available, I want to say, for approximately like 75% of our schools. So it's a really, really good option that's pretty widely available. Okay. So kind of thinking again, kind of about like this binding nature of rankings. So again, I want to say, you know, for the majority of our schools, except the 4, if you are matched to one of them, that is binding. So that means that you are obligated to attend that school the next year. And that's really, it's a very serious thing to rank schools because of that. What advice would you guys give to someone who is really nervous about that binding nature of ranking colleges?
I mean, the easiest thing naturally would be to set yourself up such that you don't have to worry. I was personally conservative with the schools that I picked. As I said, I only ranked 4, and as of my year, you could only do 8 schools. So that is still half. Like we could say for you guys, that would be 6. So if you are content with that number, then, and you can find schools, given that you can find schools that will work for you in your opinion, then there's no reason at all to worry. If you feel at any point that like a certain school may not be right, you're just not confident in it enough to really put in that binding ticket, then just don't. It's really that simple. It may ultimately lower your aid there if you do end up going there, which would be the regular decision at that point, or early action or something like that. But it's still worth it. You have the choice and the right to deliberate, and your happiness is something that you should take more seriously than just getting accepted somewhere.
To like add on to like the whole lowering your aid thing, since I experienced that, like it's definitely when you are accepted through regular decision, it's basically like they're just giving you financial aid, right? So it's going to be based off of what you can afford. So it's definitely not the end of the world because it'll still consider what your family can contribute, and that'll end up meaning that you'll still get a lot of aid. So I wouldn't worry if you're hesitant. You know, don't bind, and you'll still get a nice financial aid package that you can afford. So.
Okay, yeah. But Zora was talking about there, you know, each of our partner colleges guarantees to meet 100% of your demonstrated financial need. And in financial aid lingo, that's essentially the best policy that exists in the financial aid world. So that's something really cool. Yeah, if you're really concerned about you know, ranking a school, you're just really on the fence about it, it's okay to hold off, and you can apply through regular decision later, and you still will get an excellent financial aid package. Okay, so we have another question that's up here at the top, and I'm not sure I'm going to be able to provide a clear answer, but it is, when a college reviews finalists who ranked their school, are the finalists reviewed alongside other early decision action applicants, or QuestBridge applicants reviewed entirely separately? And like many of the answers we have for questions about our partner colleges, the answer is that it varies for each school. Each school has a different way of reviewing applicants. However, because of the way that they have access to your QuestBridge application, which is, you know, much more extensive than that of other applicants, it will be very clear that you are a Quest Scholar. And generally speaking, they receive all the materials from Quest Scholars earlier than even the early decision pools, and kind of start that process earlier because they get the decisions back. You know, December 1st is much earlier than any other pool, and so generally speaking, and so yeah, for most schools it will be earlier, although if it's separate or not depends on the school and how they review applications.
I have something to add to that. So for Tufts specifically, they do review your application separate from the other ED people. They have a specific admissions person that reads your application, so they don't put you in the same pool as everyone else. So I feel like that's, in my opinion, better, because that way that person knows what to look for and knows what to expect, and it just, I don't know, it's nicer that way, in my opinion.
Yes. Insight into the Tufts admissions from Rafael. Thank you. yeah, I think that it does, it is really nice, and I think admissions officers really enjoy being able to read the QuestBridge application and get to know you more. And they also know that if you're a Quest finalist, that you're a student who's a competitive applicant. So that does set you apart really right from the get-go. Okay. Let me see. So if you guys, now that you're kind of you've been through the rankings process, looking back on how it went for you, when you were a high school senior, what's one piece of advice that you would give to yourself, when you were in this position a couple years back?
So the one thing that I always kick myself over is, unfortunately, it didn't end up biting me. But I really didn't put enough thought into studying for the secondary SAT tests, the SAT-2s. For a lot of schools, those are not only strongly recommended tests, but even required. And that happened to be the case for many that I wanted to attend. Trinity, for whatever reason, makes it so that it's optional, and through that, I didn't even have to send them, and didn't. So that worked in my favor, but when I took the test, I didn't have many of the pieces of knowledge that I probably should have had. And I guess I could say that that's not entirely something that could be described as my fault, considering the test had even been heard of in my district. I had to go out of district to get books, and my counselors didn't know what it was. But knowing how to prepare for a test and looking at the requirements of each individual college that you're interested in is very important, and I would do that pretty much as soon as you possibly can. If there's anything that you have some glimpse of doubt about, just research thoroughly. Knowledge is power, of course. So.
I have something. I love Stanford. I obviously really enjoyed going there, but I really wanted to apply to Wesleyan because I saw a lake in their brochure, and I thought that was really fun. And also I did just a bunch more research, and I was like, wow, this is such a different environment. I would love to be part of it. But I got really discouraged by the amount of supplemental materials they were asking for, and I think I think if you really want to apply to school, you should just apply. I mean, this is just a couple months of a lot of work, but you're gonna be done, and you're gonna have applied to all these amazing schools. So I didn't end up applying, but I really wish I did. I really do regret that. I mean, I don't know if I would have gone there had I gotten in, but I just wish I did that. I really think you should apply to the schools you want to. Don't be discouraged by the amount of work you have to do. I think that just shows how great of a student you are that you're willing to put in, that much work.
So I have to say two things about that. One of them would be I would tell myself not to let my scores determine what schools I should apply to. That's one thing that I would tell myself. And the other one would be to explore the schools and see if they offer fly-ins, because a lot of them do. So you can go to the school for a fly-in and then have a little bit of the experience of what it's like to be there on campus. So that's definitely one of the advice I would give myself.
Yeah, I think I definitely would have just spent more time researching schools, just so I could see and be confident in ranking a college, because I definitely regretted not ranking schools that I would have been happy going to.
Okay. And Rafael, you actually said something that I thought was really interesting about the test scores. And we have a question about this, and that is ranking reach schools where the test scores are higher than my own, or like average test scores are higher than my own. Is that a good idea, or do you think that decreases the chance of being considered by that school? So, you know, from your experiences and, you know, where you're at now, do you have any thoughts on that?
Okay, so I would say that that wouldn't be a bad idea necessarily. I mean, to be honest, like schools take test scores from a wide range. They have like really high scores, but they also have low scores. So it doesn't really matter. All I say is that you just have to like work hard with your essays and try to make sure that the admissions person knows who you are through your essays, and just trying to tell your story as well as you can, because that, in the long run, in my opinion, will help you out the most.
I agree with that. I think ranking REACH schools in general, like you should rank some REACH schools, because if you don't, then you will never know if you'll get accepted or not. And this, you know, this is your chance to get into that school that you really, really want, you know, your dream school or whatever. But also, going off of what Raphael said, it really is more important to create a whole application that kind of represents you as a whole person, and test scores are just one part of that, and you never know what part of you a school might be really attracted to. So definitely rank a REACH school, or apply to a REACH school even through regular decision.
I would agree. The one thing that I think is very important to keep in mind when making an application in general is that being a Quest finalist, or even applying through QuestBridge at any point, puts you in a very unique position in that for many schools, their application departments will have different diversity sections. They will want to have people there that not only qualify in the sense of being like academically, sufficient, but then also just add something to the environment of the school's like intellectual property. You want to essentially just make sure that you let yourself shine as a person through your application. If you show them that you're a cool person that is deserving not just explicitly of money, but of having some way to contribute to the environment and the world in general, they're going to want you for that, and you should take advantage of that when writing. I think that's going to be worth more on average by a long shot than your test scores.
Yeah, and I would say, maybe you're hearing this right now and you're thinking, but I already wrote my main essay that's already submitted. I would say you still have the supplemental essays. If the college does require the Common App, you can definitely reuse your essay. If you feel like you want to write a completely new one for the Common App, you could do that. But I would really put a lot of time into those supplemental essays if they're required. Okay. Let's see. So I know we do have some other questions that have gotten a lot of upvotes. Unfortunately, right now we don't have final numbers on how many applications have been submitted for consideration this year. Those will be released in a media release pretty soon, though, so you can look forward to that. And if you're worried about your chances because of that, I would also add that we select finalists based on meeting our qualifications. We don't have a certain percentage of applicants that we take. Every year, if more people are qualified, we take more people because we know that our partner colleges are always looking for more applicants. They're always looking to add more Quest scholars.
And just to add to that really quickly, one of the most awesome things that I think the website and you guys do in general is that you put that all out there eventually. They have like different figures that you'll see for past years, every past year of the college, in fact, so or of the institution in general. So just look at those if you're curious. I mean, who's to say for this year, but you can get some idea at least.
Yes, Drew, I get the feeling that you do a lot of research on our website, which I'm happy about.
We're good at least, I mean.
Great. So we just have a couple minutes left. I know we've covered a lot today, but is there anything else that you feel like we didn't touch on that you think is really important the students know about the ranking process?
I don't think so.
Just rank the schools that you think that you'd be happy in, and then you'll be happy with the process. So.
Yeah. I think that's the best advice, is think about yourself, think about what's important to you, think about what campus and what student body you would be most comfortable in, most excited about, and then do your research. Do your research as much as possible until October 13th when you submit the rankings, and you'll be fine. Okay, so with that, we're going to wrap up. I know that there are some more process-oriented questions here, and I know that there were a ton of questions that we didn't get to. If you have any further questions, you can always send us an email to questions@questbridge.org. We'll be happy to answer them there. But thanks, everyone, for joining us today. And again, thanks to our wonderful Quest Scholars, our panelists who were able to join us today and tell you guys a little bit more about the rankings process. So best of luck to everyone with figuring out how you are going to rank your schools. We're sure that you're going to make an excellent decision.